All right, take two. Hey guys, it's Spear here, and today we are covering Mono Black Xenogogeta, the last archetype in our 101 series for set 12 that we have to cover. A very fun archetype that's very reminiscent of set 6 Gogeta, where you would be playing out your Vekus and then defusioning your Vekus to replay out your, your 1, 2, 3 drops, and then being able to attack with those. Very aggro-centric in that sense, but taking its black spin into it, which is going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into the archetype, guys, I am live on Twitch every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and weekends for tournaments, so links to that will be in the description down below if you want to catch me live. Let's jump into the archetype. And this is my second time recording this. The first time I recorded it, I didn't even click the record button. Let's jump into it. So, overview. Is a one-drop closer style deck. You are using your one-drops to be able to close out the game. A lot of them having crits, double strike, but a lot of your deck revolves around buffing those one-drops. So it's really cool because you're basically closing in with like 20, 30, 40k one-cost battle cards, which is really sweet to be able to do. And it's very fusion recursion centric, relying a lot, very similar to the whole, like I was saying, Red Gogeta around set 6, you're going into your Vekus, you're bouncing out your Vekus, you're going into more either fusions, or now you're going into the one drops, attack, attack, attack. Very similar style of aggro that you have to put your mind in when you're playing this deck. If we look at the leader, we have Son Goku and Vegeta. When you play a battle card with Union Fusion, you get to draw a card, a great consistency piece that we've seen on Union Fusion Synergistic archetypes for a while now. When this card attacks, you get to draw a card and then add one card from your left to your hand. Self-Awakening is very powerful, especially in this aggro deck. And activate main once per turn, you're shipping 5 cards from your top of your deck to your warp. So not drop area. This deck does focus around warp synergies more so than drop synergies, which is very interesting. Quite the twist on how black typically tends to do it. And then Awaken, when your life is at 4 or less, you get to draw one card, restand an energy, and flip around. On the other side, again, you get to draw a card on Union Fusions. When it attacks, you draw a card, and now is when you get the 5-drop proc instead of an activate main. So be very careful, guys. You're going through a ton of cards with this archetype. You definitely want to be aggressive. You definitely want to kill your opponents in the early turns of the game. Because of how much you're milling, you will not survive the late game if it ends up going into that. So just something to keep in mind. Then he has an activate main once per turn. You get to add a 1 card from your life to your hand, so you're self-awakening even more, but you get to choose 2 of your battle cards that cost 1, and they get 10k power until the end of your opponent's next turn. So not the end of your turn, the end of your opponent's next turn. So even if you don't kill with them, your opponent's gonna have to commit some kind of combo probably to be able to kill them off. And it's this kind of skill on the leader that we're really trying to see, oh, okay, so we are really buffing up our 1 cost to make them viable attackers. So the biggest thing about this deck is really the 1-drops. So if we take a look at them, we have both a Vegeta line that centralizes around crit, and we have a Goku line that centralizes around double strike. So here we have Vegeta Catastrophic Premonition, a 5-cost unique. A lot of them do have unique because obviously you don't want to be able to flood the board with a bunch of free criticals or a bunch of free double strikers. They really want you to be able to mission match between the two of them. Auto, once per turn, when your opponent plays a battle card when it costs greater than their current energy using a skill, this card gets 10k power until the end of your next turn. I mean, come on, guys. We already know almost every single deck in the game now is cheating out greater energy cards using skills, so this is almost guaranteed to happen in most matchups. We have Vegeta True Fighting Spirit, a 5-cost deflect. You get to add 1 card from your life to your hand when this card attacks and gets 10k. We've seen this on multiple decks now, but this one being a silver bullet of types, where if your leader is a Black Saiyan card, when your opponent switches their energy to active mode with a non-awakened skill, they choose 1 card in their hand and send it to their warp. So a bit of a silver bullet aspect here. Your opponent's gonna have to deal with this if he wants to be able to use things like dimension magics and all that, which is pretty annoying. So it's a great way to be able to punish your opponent. And then finally we have SS3 Trunks Marvelous Might, a 4k unique permanent. If your leader card is Black Saiyan card and you have 3 or more energy, and there's 15 or more cards in your drop area, this card gets 11k power and critical for the turn. So if Vegeta Catastrophic Premonition is one that you want to use early game to be able to get the proc, SS3 Trunks is the one you want to get late game because he does get his 11k for basically free. He gets the critical, making him a beefier body to be able to go and push in. On the Goku side, we have Goku Catastrophic Premonition. Same thing as the Vegeta, except here he has double strike instead. We have Son Goku True Fighting Spirit. His silver bullet being that if your opponent activates a counter skill, they choose 1 card from their hand and sends it to warp. And then finally, we have SS3 Gohan. Same permanent as the Trunks, where you need 15 cards in your drop, and he'll get 11k, but this time double strike instead of critical. Very powerful, great bodies, right? Especially since a lot of them do great things, especially like critical, unique. You have bullet aspects if you know your opponent's going to be able to counter stuff instead. So a lot of different things and routes you can take to really be able to push them. Especially when you consider the leader and other cards we're going to see in the archetypes that will make them, 25ks, 30ks, 40ks, very big beefy attackers to go in and close out the game. Of course, this is a Union Fusion heavy deck, so we have to look at those cards. If we look at Gohanks, we have Marvelous Might, a 6 cost 20k critical. Activate main for 2. If your lead card is Black Sand card and you send a Son Gohan and Trunks from your drop area to your warp, play this card from your hand. So a lot of the Gogetas work with sending cards from warp to drop. The Gohanks work from sending cards from drop to warp, more similar to what we've seen Black do before. Activate main if you have a Black Unison card in play. Place this card in its owner's drop area, and then you get to play 1 Son Gohan with energy cost of 1 and 1 Trunks with an energy cost of 1 from your deck or drop area. Then shuffle your deck if you look through it. Can't activate multiple cards, activate main per turn. So now we see, you know, especially if a lot of one cost, we're going to see later on, add consistency pieces to the deck. And it really shows this whole, we're going to go into a fusion to then go into and defuse them to get value, to be able to set up our attackers. And it's the kind of line you have to put yourself in when you're thinking about how to play this deck. When we look at Gohanks Master Student Union, a 6 cost 15k. When this card is played, you get to draw 1 card. If you don't have Black Unison, you get to play it. And it's going to be a frequent thing we see in this. You know, he's going to get 1 marker. And the whole recursion of your Unison is actually one of the ways that you get even more buffs on your 1 cost, which is super annoying for your opponent to have to deal with. And it's an attacker you can recur over and over and over again. Activate main for 1 if your lead card is a Black Sand card and you send 1 Son Gohan and 1 Trunks. And mind you guys, all the names I'm going to say here are going to be Xenos, just something to keep in mind. Card from your drop area to your warp, you get to play this card from your hand, so another cheap way to get them out. And finally, Gohanks Apocalyptic Future, the TP promo, 6 cost 15k unique. Activate main, you get to send a Son Gohan and a Trunks from your drop to your warp to play it. And then activate main for 1 if your lead card is a Black Sand card and you place this card at the bottom of your deck from your drop area. If you don't have a Unison card in play, you get to free play it with 1 marker, and then you can't play Unison cards for the turn. So something to keep in mind, is not going to let you infinitely play Unison cards, which is kind of a bummer. There are limitations on it. But it is cool that you're going to be able to recur Unisons over and over, even if it's just once, twice, or thrice, because you can hardcast the Unison twice, get the buff, attack, play hardcast another one for 1, get the buff, attack, and then play the skill to be able to at least get them a 3rd time and be able to buff attack, which is super awesome. When we look at the Gogeta side of things, we have Gogeta Fearless Fusion, a 16k blocker that Union Fusions for 1 black, and the permanent saying that you can use the pieces from warp inside of your hand, and they go to drop instead. Auto, when this card is played, you get to choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 4 or less, ignoring barrier, and set it to its owner's warp. So it's a removal option. It's not super powerful, considering the other Gogetas we can go into, but it is great to be able to have these defensive options that also remove your opponent's board if you need them. When we look at SS3 Gogeta Marvelous Might, a 20k barrier, Union Fusion for 1 black. If your leader card is a Black Sand card, and your opponent has 2 or more energy, use a Son Goku and a Vegeta. Again, permanent, they can come from your warp instead. Activate main for 1 black. Place this card at the bottom of your deck. You get to play 1 Son Goku and 1 Xeno with an energy cost of 1 from your drop area. Again, we're going to attack with this big fusion body. We're going to get our value from it. Oh, okay, now we're going to defuse it. Now we're going to have these 1-drops that not only can we buff, but have great skills in critical and double strike that we're able to close out the game. When we look at the TP promo Gogeta, we have SS3 Gogeta Martial Melee, 25k double striker, Union Fusions for 3 with the same permanent. Again, you can use them from your warp. This one having an activate main once per turn, you get to place 1 Son Goku and 1 Vegeta, both of which have to be 5k power in your drop area to your warp, and then switch this card to active mode. Setting him from drop to warp is really sweet because you're able to then have more pieces in your warp to be able to go into more Gogetas. So now we're seeing the way that we're looping over and over again to be able to push out and recur fusions over and over and over again. And because this card restands itself from that skill, you basically have a dual attacking double striker, which is a great card to have. When we look at the support cards, in terms of the Son Gohans and the Trunks, they do actually have support 1-drops. So if you don't want to go for the finisher SS3 variants right away until the later game, you can use these earlier ones to be able to accrue value. So if your leader card is black, when this card is sent from your drop area to your warp by a skill, place the card at the bottom of your deck from your warp, which basically like lines itself up with this activate main, where if your leader card is Black Sand card and you send this card from your drop to your warp and you choose 1 of your Black Unison cards and place it in its owner's drop area, you get to draw 1 card, and then you can't activate the activate main skill of this copy's card for the turn. So this is really cool because it combos really well with the promo card we saw before, where now we're forcing our way to not have a Unison on board so that we're able to cheat 1 out. So this is how all of this kind of combos together to be able to do that. Trunks here doing a very similar thing. However, instead of drawing a card, you are removing an opponent's 4 cost or less and sending it to its owner's warp. So if you want to draw a card, you can go with Son Gohan. If you want a removal option, you can go with Trunks instead. And then finally, we have another TP promo. A lot of TP promos in this set for black. Supreme God of Time, summoned from another dimension. You have a 1 cost 4k battle card with an active main. If your lead card is a Black Stain card and you place this card at the bottom of your deck from your warp. If you don't have Unison card play, you get to choose up to one Black Unison card with no specified cost and 15k power in your hand or warp and play it with a marker on it. You can't play Unison cards again for the turn. So I think all of these having that restriction that you can't play Unison cards again for the turn makes sense. It'd be too broken otherwise, but that doesn't stop you from being able to play them twice a turn, which is really sweet. And if you hardcast 2, you can set up for 3, which is really, really sweet. Especially when we actually look at the Unison Pycon Savior from Another Time, a 15k, no specified cost, but does have the permanent. It needs to have more than 2 markers on it to attack. And then +1 activate main, get to choose up to 2 black battle cards with the cost of 1, and they get 10k power for the turn. So this is really cool because Pycon by himself, if you just recur him 1 time, means that you're giving an extra 20k to 2 battle cards, which is massive. You include your leader, that's 30k by itself. Hey, did you hardcast Pycon twice to get him 3 times on board? That's 30k. And if he sticks on board for a while and uses ultimate instead, he gets an activate main where you get to play 1 card when Union Fusion skill from your drop area that costs 6. So now we're setting up the Gogetas, the Gohanks, all of those are playable with this. A great way to be able to even push your aggro grade, a very strong ultimate in an aggro deck. Finally, the only defensive card we really have to look specific to the archetype, we have Explosive Barrage / Counterattack. If your lead card is a Black Stain card, negate the attack. Then if you don't have a Black Unison card in play, go get 115 power from your drop area warp and add a marker to it and play it. So again, this is pretty sweet because, hey, did your opponent put enough energy to try and kill your Unison? Sweet, now I get to pay 2 energy to actually free play him again and set up for my next turn, which can be awesome, especially considering how much we can recur him, sets up some really nice lines. And that's Mono Black Xenogogeta, a super cool archetype that's very aggressive, leans very similar to the style that Red Gogeta used to, but with its interesting spin on how it manipulates the warp, on the 1-drops and what the 1-drops can do. And I think it's going to be a really fun and exciting archetype, one that actually like piques my interest. I'm not going to lie, the more and more I look at this deck, the more and more I look at the cards, the more and more I'm actually considering playing it. With that said though, how would you guys build the deck? Would you guys stick very vanilla, or are there enough room in the black color space now in the black card pool that we can experiment and really go into a bunch of other stuff while taking this into account? Let me know how you guys would build it in the description down below. If you guys like the video, give it a thumbs up. Hey guys, if you dislike it, thumbs down works too. If you want to catch more of my videos, the Archetype 101s are done, but not forever. We will be coming back with next sets. I'm looking to make more discussion videos, more gameplay videos. If you guys want to catch more of me and any of that, subscribe button's right down there in the corner. With that said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Ciao.